He, visibly confused, Donald Trump, had absolutely no idea who slain Minnesota Democratic State Representative Melissa Hortman was when he was asked by a reporter as to why he did not order the flags lowered to half-mast after her assassination back in June by a Trump supporter. Now, the context there is pretty important because Trump had ordered all the flags to be flown half-mast for after the assassination of Charlie Kirk, who is not is a public figure, but not a public servant, not a member of Congress or the government, but a conservative podcaster. So now I'm going to show you the video here of him being like, in a second. So let's do that, and then we'll discuss.
Do you think it would have been fitting to lower the flags to half-staff when Melissa Hortman, the Minnesota House Speaker, was gunned down by an assassin as well?
I'm not familiar. The
Minnesota House Speaker, a Democrat, who was assassinated this summer.
Well, if the governor had asked me to do that, I would have done that. But the governor of Minnesota didn't ask me. I didn't. I wouldn't have thought of that, but I would have if somebody had asked me. People make requests for the lowering of flag, and oftentimes you have to say no because it would be a lot of lowering. The flag would never be up. Had the governor of Minnesota asked me to do that, I would have done that gladly.
Oh, yeah. Who? I'm not familiar with that person. I'm not familiar with that person. But let me tell you what. If they had asked me, I totally would have done it. Probably, maybe. I mean, we turn a lot of people down, but I maybe could have possibly. I don't know. What? Hold on. So wait, this was a high-profile political murder. Okay, of not only a Democrat but also her husband and their dog. Okay, but you didn't hear about it? You didn't know about it? No, that's a lie. He did know about that. In fact, he had previously called it, terrible, and all that stuff. But then, what's important here is he went on to say that why should I call the governor of Minnesota about this? I could be nice and call, but why waste my time? Why waste time calling the governor of Minnesota? Yes, that is exactly what he said. Okay, that was a quote. I could be nice and call, but why waste time? Governor Tim Walz, I mean, he's kind of a kook anyway. He's kind of a crazy person. So why would I even bother? Yeah. So Trump talked to him. Or Trump, could have talked to him, but he didn't. Okay, he had the chance. But, he didn't. And so Tim Walz never had the chance to ask him to lower the flag. I don't know if he would have anyway, but again, never got that chance to talk to the president. I don't know, man. It kind of seems like there is some selective empathy going on here, which is, again, only for Charlie Kirk, who, yes, is a member of the conservative movement, obviously, and needlessly was killed. And I don't agree with that. I don't like that. I don't like that it happened. That's not a good signal. Not only for it's not good. It's not good for anyone. Okay, not good for anyone. Now, the right wing wants everyone to mourn and lionize Charlie Kirk, and they're aggressively going after anyone who points out some of the controversial things that Charlie Kirk has said. Okay, so if you say, hey, Charlie Kirk said some pretty nasty things in his career as a right wing podcaster, which kind of goes along with the territory, I believe. But you say some controversial things, perhaps some nasty things, and then if you later on, after this tragedy, okay, which again should have never happened, but if you repeat some of those things and say, hey, this is what he said, right? And I'm just saying, nobody's saying he deserved to get murdered for that, but this is his quote, okay, just to show you that, yeah, he was a person that we did not agree with on pretty much anything. This administration is going to come after you and try to silence you for just pointing that out. Already, an MSNBC contributor has been fired. I believe it was a Washington Post contributor, either Washington Post or New York Times, writer that was fired as well, again, for just saying fairly benign things. Okay. So just fairly benign things and just pointing out or quoting Charlie Kirk in context. And so, I mean, there's that. But anyway, they go after those people and want everyone to lionize Charlie Kirk and to mourn him tearfully. And yet, these same people ignore the democratic victims of political violence. It's like they don't even see political violence against Democrats as a problem, which it is a problem. In fact, political violence overall is a problem. It just happens to be aimed more so at the left than anyone else. Okay, and yet Trump and his cohorts are attempting to pin all 100% of the political violence on the left, the so-called radical left.
And given the killing of Melissa Hortman, the attack on Paul Pelosi, the attack on Gabby Giffords, the attack on the Pennsylvania governor's mansion, why make the case that violence is only on one side? It seems to be taking place.
I didn't say it's on one side, but I say the radical left causes tremendous violence, and they seem to do it in a bigger way. But the radical left really is caused a lot of problems for this country. I really think they hate our country.
I mean, he cannot help himself. He can't help himself. Oh, they cause tremendous violence and in a much bigger way. What are you talking about? What are you talking about? That's not reality. Okay. Now Trump isn't the only one, by the way, who parrots this. Vice President J.D. Vance, who literally took over to guest host Charlie Kirk's podcast from his political office. That's really super unethical. Okay. Incredibly unethical. Pretty messed up. Here's what he said. I mean, it's not even as messed up as what he actually said there. He said, while our side of the aisle certainly has its crazies. Oh, wow, there's an admission, right? It is a statistical fact that most of the lunatics on American politics today are proud members of the far left. Something has gone very wrong with a lunatic fringe, a minority, but a growing and powerful minority on the far left. Okay, gotta call bullshit on that one. Bullshit. All right, seriously, the majority of the political violence, not all, but a majority of the political violence is perpetrated by the far right. Look, domestic extremist related killings on the U.S. between 2013 and 2022 shows that the right-wing extremists are responsible for the majority of extremist-related murder. 75%. Okay, three quarters. All right, while left-wing extremism is 4%. 4%. Then you have Islamic extremism, 20%, and the other extremism, 1%. These are the facts. These are the facts. 3/4 of all the political violence murders in this country are perpetrated by the far right. Okay, the young man who has been accused of killing Charlie Kirk was a member of the extreme far right Groyper America First movement headed up by Nick Fuentes. Remember, these are ultra-nationalist, ultra-conservative people. They had been fighting with Charlie Kirk. They have accused him of being not sufficiently right-wing enough after Charlie Kirk, to his credit, had called for the release of the Epstein files. Okay, now you have to understand that these America First people, okay, the Groyper movement, are way further to the right than even Charlie Kirk and Donald Trump, who are, again, in my estimation, in my view, are very right-wing. Nick Fuentes regularly criticized Trump from the right. And so this and many other instances of political violence comes from the extreme far right. And yet the conversation that these people want to have, that the conservatives that are even the ones that are even being targeted by this political violence, is we want to talk about the radical left instead. Which in America, the radical left is healthcare for everyone, higher wages, labor rights, and yes, using pronouns and respecting trans people's identities. That's really it. There's nothing extreme about the American left, which is centrist compared to the rest of the world. Despite what idiots like Elon Musk say. Okay, they've had their brains rotted by Reddit, okay, or whatever, 4chan. Here's the thing. Right-wing violence has been a growing issue for a very long time. I've been covering this stuff for over 10 years, okay? And just that, within that period of time, and even before, there were instances of growing acceptance of political violence over on the right wing. This was going on during the Obama administration. I remember that. Just a massive increase in political violence over there and violent rhetoric. Now, the Obama administration tried to look into that, but you know what? They ended up stopping because Republicans complained about it. That's right. They complained. They got mad. Back in 2012, there was a report written by a Department of Homeland Security official, which warned about the resurgence of right-wing extremism. That report, titled Right-Wing Extremism, Current Economic and Political Climate Fueling Resurgence and Radicalization and Recruitment, caused outrage among Republicans. That report was met with harsh criticism from people like then House Minority Leader John Boehner, who had accused the agency of not focusing on the real threat, like Islamic terrorism, which, if you go back to that chart, 20%, that's significant, right? I mean, you got Al-Qaeda, the Taliban, ISIS, those groups, all right? Religious, fundamentalist, Islamic extremism, okay? Now, that said, 75% of the political violence is done by the right, the far right, the sovereign citizens, these anti-government, anti-abortion, anti-LGBTQ extremists, right? These aren't your normal Republicans. These aren't your normal conservatives that are like, I don't know, I just think there's too much taxes and regulation. Okay, we can have a discussion on that. But the ones that deny people's humanity, deny gay people the existence of trans people, try to deny them rights and their humanity, all that stuff, that is, you can't have a conversation with that, okay? You can't have a conversation where you just don't believe or don't want to believe that certain people deserve human rights, okay? That's the reality. But they knew, the government knew, okay, that the right wing, all the way back then, that the violence is coming from, the majority of it is coming from the right. But because conservatives and Fox News complained, Obama disbanded that group and buried this report. That's it. That failure to commit to investigating and stopping right-wing radical political violence is why we are all in this boat today, and likely why Charlie Kirk's kids no longer have their dad. All right? That's the reality, okay? The cowardice of the Obama administration in firing or reassigning the group of people that were studying and tracking far-right violence is unforgivable. It really is. It really is. Centrism, and it's a great example of how the centrism fails to put a stop to fascism. That's the reality of the situation. We are all suffering as a result of not only that administration, but each successive administration's failure to rein in far-right extremist political violence. And not only that, but to failure to address the material conditions that lead to the kind of radicalization that we have seen in the first place. that overwhelmingly, because of messaging, targets people on the left, but is now also targeting anyone who the extremist far right no longer considers to be sufficiently right-wing enough. That means that there are Republicans, there are conservatives that are also being targeted. Charlie Kirk is the latest example of someone to have fallen from right-wing extremist violence, the kind of violence that everyone on the left does not want to happen. We don't want to see this happen. In fact, we warned you that it was going to happen if you don't put a check on them. And yet, those very same people that we are trying to protect from right-wing political violence, or all political violence, not just from the right wing, okay, but all political violence, are the very ones that not only don't want to put a stop on it, but then when it happens, to turn around and blame the left. Because that's exactly what they're doing. The monster that these people spent decades creating on the far right is now loose as a result of all of this, and is now terrorizing all of us. And what are we going to do about it? This administration doesn't want to do anything about it, as long as they are allowed to just blame the left for everything.